Hey guys, welcome back to the Stories of Reno. Before it was Reno. This week we're gonna head on down to the corner of Clearacre and Wedekind, where we learn about a town that sat there in 1863. But don't worry, this isn't just some boring documentary about a town. It's a boring documentary about an awesome town. But before we get into all of the lies, cheating, scandal, murder, we're gonna need to take a walk down the golden streets of Reno.
The glamorous days of '49 have come to life again in the rolling hills of northwestern Nevada.
For its streets are almost literally paved with gold. Gold has been found under the streets anyway, and unless something is done about it, another Klondike rush is imminent. So far, the yield has been very small, but when the prospectors really get down to it, anything might happen.
Reno only had one place to thank for its golden streets, a long-forgotten town that was just as instrumental to Reno's rise as Reno was to its demise. I'm talking about the little city before the big city.
Now I know it looks like we're walking down any old street here in Reno, but we're actually walking down any old street in Auburn. Auburn, Nevada, that is. Let's rewind it back, like way back to 1861.
Reno was no more than a bridge owned by a gentleman named Charles Fuller. But 3 miles up the road from the little-known bridge sat the new town of Auburn. The story of Auburn is really the story of a mill, the English mill.
When an Irishman by the name of Colonel William O'Connor Sidney, yes, that Colonel O'Connor, the one who in a drunken rampage tried to murder everyone, don't worry, we'll touch on that subject a little bit later. Anyway, Colonel O'Connor had come to Nevada with a large amount of British capital looking for some investments. And at the same time, a gentleman by the name of William Boyle was looking for someone with a lot of capital to invest in a flour mill. As fate would have it, these two gentlemen found each other and went into the milling business together. O'Connor used his $500,000 of British capital to purchase 1,000 acres of land, and Boyle immediately got to work planting 300 acres of wheat and building a state-of-the-art flour mill. Hey guys, coming at you live from the English mill. Right now you're thinking, Harmony, there's no mill here, and pretty sure we're near the corner of Clearacre and Wedekind. In 1863, this wasn't the corner of Clearacre and Wedekind. This was the corner of Mill Road and Washoe Avenue. And what sat on the corner of Mill Road and Washoe Avenue? Well, the English mill did. These condos, this street, this hill, and that clearing were all part of the English mill, the ginormous facility that sat here in the town of Auburn. Although an extremely successful wheat mill is great for some people, Colonel O'Connor, he had golden dreams, and upon hearing about all of the gold that was being found in the nearby Peavine Mountain, he saw an opportunity to get rich quick. He took some of the gold ore with him back to England and convinced the British company to go into the mining business. They branched out under the direction of O'Connor and transformed into the Washoe United Consolidated Gold and Silver Mining Company. The WUCGSMC immediately began to convert their flour mill into a massive quartz mill, primarily processing ore from the Peavine mines that Colonel O'Connor purchased on the company's behalf. Now, it's pretty impossible to run a massive stamp mill without a large amount of employees. And it's pretty much impossible to get a large amount of employees unless they have somewhere to live. So the English company set out to make a standard state-of-the-art company town. And in 1863, the official town plot map and papers were filed with Washoe County for the new town of Auburn.
Looks picturesque, doesn't it? And it is picturesque.
But sleepy scenes like these give only one facet of peace and quiet, and at the same time, the mighty roar of industry.
Don't let the quiet street today fool you, because in 1865, this was a very different scene. All these little houses we see right here, well, these were businesses.
That the Sleepy Hollow once throbbed with life, and that the street was crowded almost 24 hours a day.
So this is where all the businesses, blacksmith shops, SA office, general stores, stables, lots of saloons.
Everyone will start away. We'll start slow just for a knock. And when I say let's go, babe, do your...
The town had a population of 200 people that all worked at the English mill that sat right up on the hill over here and loomed over the old town.
In fact, to be accurate, to a village which has only one industry, mill, that visibly dominates the town.
The town of Auburn was a success, but unfortunately, the mill, not so much. Do you remember way back when I said they were processing ore from their mines on Peavey Mountain? It seems these mines weren't panning out, literally. As they would find out later, the good colonel wasn't being so truthful on the value of these mines. Was buying worthless mines for penny on the dollar, then presenting them to the English company as rich pay mines and selling them to them for top dollar, pocketing the difference. The English company, not aware of this, was running their mill 24 hours a day, processing completely worthless ore. This caused the company to lose massive amounts of money every single day that the mill was in use. And the English company sent in operatives to relieve him of his position. We are walking down the same street Colonel O'Connor walked down when he was looking for people to kill. Yeah, you heard that right. The good colonel went bad. Well, he didn't take to losing his job so well. And he vowed to kill, as in murder, every single person from the English company who rode into town. The newspaper article said that the colonel was walking this road right here searching for victims. Now you can only imagine what it was like. All of the townspeople of Auburn were hiding in their houses, scared. Now, one of those people that rode into town was Bishop Minogue. That's right, from Minogue High School. Accidentally mistaking him for one of the English operatives, shot him. He shot the bishop. But the bishop was okay because Colonel O'Connor, in a very drunken state by this point, missed and just hit his horse. Upon seeing what he did, he ran over to the bishop's aid. The two of them went inside his house, which sat about right over here, had some wine, where he sat there and told him a story where he'd shot 5 men that night. That's right, 5 men lay dead here in the street behind me. And the bishop convinced the colonel to turn himself in. The colonel turned himself in, went to Glendale to be hung for his crimes. However, he was not hung for his crimes, because right before he could be hung, the bishop stepped in and saved his life again. He traded the lives of what was several Indians, 1864, and they let the colonel go. It's important to note that he did not get off scot-free. He was told to never, ever return to the town of Auburn again. Ever. Colonel O'Connor. Gotta love him. The mill went on to make further headlines when the old girl was robbed. That's right. On September 8th, 1871, 2 gentlemen busted their way into the furnace room around 2 in the morning, bound and gagged the roaster, reached into the furnace, and took off with 180 pounds of flaming red-hot bouillon. The pair ran with the loot, which was producing an extreme amount of smoke, a surprising 1.5 miles, at which point they decided to bury it until it cooled in order to not attract attention. Word got out quick, and the sheriff was hot, literally, on their trail. First, following the smoke to the stolen gold and silver, which was still too hot to handle with bare hands. Then, following the obvious tracks to one of the robbers, John Stout, who was promptly arrested. But John Stout, he ain't no snitch, and despite being sentenced to 20 years in prison for his part in the crime, never gave up his partner. After the dust settled from the English company found themselves $5.1 million in debt, the owners of several worthless mining claims, and on the hook for a large, expensive mill. No one suffered more than the townspeople of Auburn, as the English company had no way to pay its workers. Through the latter half of the 1860s, it would go through a series of attempts to make it pay, only to be followed by long periods of idleness. It became apparent that the old mill would never be able to support a town. But just as the townspeople of Auburn began to worry about their future, 3.5 miles down the road, something big was about to happen. Something that would seal the fate of Auburn and eventually erase its town from history. On April 1st, 1868, a gentleman by the name of Joseph M. Graham drove a survey stake into the ground of the English mill ditch. He was surveying for a new kind of town, a railroad town. The Central Pacific, while on their mission to conquer the world, cut a land deal with Myron Lake in exchange for a shiny new train station. The new town of Reno offered things that Auburn had been lacking for some time: industry, transportation, opportunity to own your own house on a choice lot, but most importantly, it offered jobs. And one by one, the good folks of Auburn became some of the first citizens of Reno. As the years went by, the Auburn mill fell more and more into disrepair, slowly being dismantled to help build the town below. First, its tailings were purchased and used to pave the streets of the golden alleys of downtown Reno. Eventually, the large mill became a hollow shell of what it once was, sitting high on a hill and watching over a changing world. A world that had completely forgot about it. That is until 1951, when the biggest little city's borders finally caught up to the old girl. The city of Reno filed papers with Washoe County to expand its borders, and it was discovered that they couldn't, because there was already a town there. This caused Reno to have to file papers to officially absorb the old township of Auburn, thus closing the final chapter on a long-forgotten town, its mill, and the people whose hardy souls still live in its cemetery.
The mahogany is dusty, all the pipes are very rusty, and the good old-fashioned musty doesn't musty anymore. All the stuff's got bummer from the middle of the summer. Now the bar's on the Hummer, and for rent is on the door. How sad and still tonight by the old distillery.
Okay, so when we were across the street over there, I was like, hey, Jerry, do you think that maybe that's quartz over there? Because we're looking for what was a quartz mill. Jerry said, what was that you said, Jerry?
I said, no, it's gravel.
It's gravel. Now we're here, and what is this? What is this stuff right here that you're seeing? What is this? What is this called? I believe it's called quartz. And then Jerry said, what did you say, Annie? Maybe someone came and dumped a bunch of quartz right here where we think there might have been a quartz mill.
The moon shines so merrily. Oh, oh.